Anorexia had me for around 30 years, I think. And I say I think, because it's really difficult to truly know when anorexia first and last showed up. You see, it's not like measles or chickenpox, where you can more or less pinpoint when the symptoms began and from there forecast an end date when it's going to have run its course and you're going to be feeling better. Anorexia is nothing like that. I suppose I was around 14 when what most people had called typical anorexia behaviours began showing up outwardly. Restricting food, an obsession with my body size and shape, a total compulsion to exercise for hours and hours on end. But by then, anorexia had already been grooming me internally for years. Like a predator watching me from the shadows, she'd studied me in minute detail, learned everything about me. And she'd witnessed the trauma I'd experienced and the ensuing pain and distress and loneliness. And she'd gleaned from my 7-year-old self what that little girl needed more than anything else in the world. To feel safe and to feel like she mattered enough to someone somewhere to protect. And anorexia took those things and she used them to lay the foundation for the relationship that would go on for the next 3 decades. So first she groomed me by telling me everything I wanted and needed to hear, so I'd trust her. Then she saved me from my trauma by disconnecting me from my pain and giving me strategies to stop that pain from bleeding into my life. And ultimately, as the demands grew ever more brutal and extreme, she tried to kill me. Anorexia laid the trap, and anorexia lured me into the trap, and then anorexia tried to convinced me that she was the only way out of the trap. You'll notice I talk about anorexia in specific terms. Don't call it an eating disorder, because that's never felt right to me. It's pathologizing. And it implies I'm disordered and there's something wrong with me. And just like all the other women and girls that I work with on this journey with anorexia or bulimia, I don't believe there's anything wrong with any of us. I believe our culture's disordered and it's screwed up values and all the significance it puts on outward appearance. I believe it's toxic and that we are canaries in the coal mine, bellwethers, ringing an alarm to let everyone know that toxicity is in the air. And the term eating disorder puts an emphasis on food. And yes, anorexia is about food, but it's also really not about food. I mean, the food and body image stuff's a lethal weapon in our arsenal, because everywhere I looked, I could see the status and inclusion that thin privilege brings. And without its protection, I was 7 again, alone and vulnerable. So yeah, if I was hungry, anorexia wouldn't let me eat, but if I was tired, she wouldn't let me sleep. If I was standing up, she wouldn't let me sit down. If I was thirsty, I couldn't drink. If I was cold, I couldn't warm up. If I was lonely and needed a hug, I couldn't reach out. Fun was banned and punishable. Everything was austere, serious and harsh, right? No softness, no warmth, no give. Those things represented failure. Enduring deprivation was the name of the game. And the more I could deprive myself, the more worthy I was. And you'll notice I talk about anorexia as if it's another person. Now, for me, it was definitely a she, but for others it's he, it, they, sometimes interchangeably. And to be clear, I knew it wasn't an external something. I knew it was a part of me. But separating her out in that way really helped me to differentiate myself from her and to be able to shine a light on her tactics and strategies. So I didn't get all ensnared in the self-blame and judgment that she loved to subject me to. And right about now, Right? You could be forgiven for thinking I'm talking about an abusive and narcissistic partner, right? It's like all my clients resonate with that. Like totally annihilate your self-esteem, tell you you're nothing without them, gaslight you, destroy your confidence, harm you physically, call you names, cut you off from everyone and everything you love, so that your life just revolves around them. And all the people on the outside that can see you disappearing before their eyes, see the danger you're in, say, why don't you just leave? Why don't you just eat? You think we hadn't thought of that? Like that seemingly simple solution is loaded with terror. And for us, the risk is in leaving, not staying. It's in eating, not starving. We believe if we make that break, it's coming after us. It's going to be worse. Now, all abusers, internal or external, absolutely must keep you disconnected from yourself and therefore your power. Anorexia doesn't want you to remember that she gets her power from you. At the second you make that connection, you see a glimpse of your life light. It's like replacing a crucial fuse that blew and had your house in darkness for years. Anorexia don't want the lights on. Right? Like any abuser, she operates best by keeping you in the dark. And when you're in the dark, disconnected from yourself, you open a void that can then be filled by an opportune other. And that's what anorexia does. As she disembodies you, ties you up, locks you in the basement, as she moves in, inhabits your body, you become more of her and less of you. You come to believe anorexia is you. Right? But I'm here. And anorexia hasn't had me for 13-ish years. Obviously escaped the basement. So what did I do to reconnect with myself? Well, it took a bit. And it wasn't just one thing. But here's what was absolutely pivotal for me. Horses. When I got the chance to work with horses early in my recovery, oh God, it was like a match had been struck, thrown onto my straw-stuffed heart. Anorexia anaesthetizes your feelings, but something began to stir. I could hear this little faint voice of a part of me going, go, go, go. And anorexia was throwing spears at you. But I did go. And I realized when I was with the horses, anorexia was on the back burner. I was present, and she lost power in those moments. And I didn't realize it at the time. But that was my fuse moment, right? A little light went on somewhere, and the horses were the switch. It's like they opened a door back to my body. And although I didn't always walk through it, they held it open for me nevertheless, reminding me that my body is my home. And if I wanted my life back, I had to get back in there. Now you might be thinking, so you rode some horses around a field, then you got better. No. And there's one assumption that nearly everybody makes and gets wrong, right? Because in equine assisted therapy, we don't ride horses. We practically do everything but. But no, there is so much more going on under the surface. You see, all mammals are wired to connect. We need connection like we need food and water. In the Polyvagal theory, Dr. Stephen Porges says that it's our biological imperative to connect. And connection is how mammals survive. And without a secure attachment in infanthood, that means bonding with another that provides safety, the infant brain is affected in every way. And from our ability to relate to others, our ability to manage stress, our ability to regulate emotions throughout life, and our physiological response to danger and deprivation, mammals absolutely need to connect to thrive. And all mammals can co-regulate. And that means that our nervous systems attune and resonate to one another's like tuning forks, promoting shared experiences. So you know how if you're with someone who's anxious and wound up, you can feel yourself starting to go that way? Or you're with others who are more laid back, having a good time. And it's easy to get caught up in that. It's because our nervous systems influence each other's. I hope you've all got at least one friend that can stay calm when you're angry or upset, kind of providing a handrail for your nervous system. And for some people, that friend's a dog or a cat. Horses are just kind of a bigger version of that friend. Thanks to their position as prey animals and their evolutionary understanding that the herd equals safety, horses have evolved towards social engagement and affiliative behaviours and rest and digest states of being. When we're with them, we orient to those states of being too. This regulated state sets the conditions for eating and digestion, connection, and rest and repair. And in this optimum state, we're exploratory beings. We're our most present, and we have access to creativity and curiosity. Right? Meaning we can imagine and create more life-affirming alternatives. So dysregulated equals get away or get away. Regulated equals come in or come in. Now, I could spend the rest of this talk telling you how science is now proving that horses' hearts can talk to ours, how their heart rhythms actually synchronize with ours, indicating they feel what we feel, and how their coherent heart patterns and naturally high amplitudes of very low frequency heart rhythms influence our hearts during horse to human interactions that doesn't happen human to human. These two things are a solid measure of mental, emotional, and physical health. And they're also indicators of a system that can adapt and recover from stressful situations efficiently. I'm sure you can see how helpful that is. And I want to share with you the magic that happens on our farm. Like the young woman who, due to a series of devastating and unpredictable events, had come to believe that the future held nothing for her. And her anxiety and depression often spiraled into suicidal thoughts. She really didn't think she had anything to offer. And yet she had a 17-hand horse following her around like a puppy. No halter, no rope. And for no other reason than he found something in her he wanted to share in. He wanted to be close to. And over a few months, he really helped to restore her self-belief. And she stopped self-harming, hating herself. She re-engaged, went back to school. She has her own horse now. And the beautiful relationship developing between them isn't only healing her, but her whole family. Or the woman who brought her horse for training because it kept smashing through fences. She couldn't keep it in. And it soon came to light, in her words, she felt trapped in a violent marriage that she didn't think she could escape from. Well, with support, she did escape. And her horse stopped running through fences. Or the woman who, having lived with anorexia for more than 4 decades, had lost everything. Marriage, health, a lifelong career she loved. She'd even lost a relationship with the kids. And she couldn't control the sobs that shook her body or the tears that flowed. And one of our horses dropped his head behind hers and using his neck He scooped her to his chest and held her heart to heart, while he too wept big fat horse tears. And she said afterwards that she'd lost trust to lean on another person, but that she knew she could lean on that horse and he wouldn't let her fall. She spoke about how peaceful she felt being held for just a few minutes with no conditions. Horses co-regulate with our nervous systems, they connect with our hearts, and they hold us in the here and now for just as long as we can bear. They show us we can find our way home to ourselves and that they're here to help. So let's go back to anorexia and her objective of disconnecting me from myself. And I overcame her because the horses held that door open for me. They anchored me until I was able to anchor myself. Their embodied presence acted like a homing beacon, guiding me in. And I gradually moved back in, moved anorexia out. And now I've learned to be a beacon too. And just like the horses, when people come to me for help, I see them first, their wholeness. And I see anorexia or whatever it is second. You know, anorexia and bulimia kill more people than any other mental health issue. And our one-size-fits-all solution to dealing with it, it's just not helping. Anorexia is not the same twice. It's unique to each individual. So doesn't it make sense that our approach to healing should be the same way? My working partner, Joe, and I, we've been partnering with our horses for offering this kind, non-pathologizing way of working with mental health for more than a decade now, and teaching non-predatory leadership skills and affiliative and collaborative teamworking solutions. And as far as we're concerned, the results are in. Find horses. Connect with horses. And from there, more wholly with yourselves. Now, that has to be an idea worth spreading.